Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we're back with another first line. Try to do another 3 issues of the series. I don't have to give you much precursor. This is a series about the gap between the last time we saw the invaders to the time because all the stuff that happened in the 60s, because the Marvel time has slowly shifted down to the present day. So within this time, or this gap before the Fantastic Four went up in their rocket, this is the stories that happen here. Now, at this point, you're going to start seeing these stories connect to some historical events. We hadn't seen much connect in the first 3, but now we'll start to see a little bit of like flags to let you know where you're at in time, right? And I don't think you can tell from these covers yet, but you will as it goes along. You saw the cover, and if you see the logo I've used for the first line, it's sort of mocked up from this graphic here, where there is a font that I found that was exactly like it. So I was able to recreate the whole logo, and I think I did a mock cover, so utilizing some of the original stuff, covers, and then mocking it, saying the first line. It could have been interesting seeing it marketed as the first line rather than the Lost Generation, like the Avengers of its time, right? So let's go through it. We have in like an Alpha Flight cover, to save one of their own, they will lose one. Who will it be? So if you're looking at this cover, you don't know who these guys are. So far, we got the ones I remember: Oxbow, what's it, Flatiron, just looking through this, Reflex, Black Fox, Nightingale, Pixie, Positron, and I've forgotten who this one is. All right, so let's go through it. And we open up and we see another Dr. Carmody early on. Now, he was presented in some of these, I guess it's Golden Age comics, as the Living Brain. And this is where the Living Brain got a body, right? So a little before we had, who's that guy? Before we had Walkabout, Professor Carmody was this person. They're going to go through his history. When I saw this, I was like, bang, this is on. But this is where you get to, this is going to be the point of the story where you start to lose some of your favorite characters. And for me, some of my favorite characters, right? And he was one of them. So we see him, he's getting a new body. The pencils for this are amazing. And the history of him being mortally wounded, his brain being saved. I looked at the internal brain. And then he runs into this government official that we see all the time, and that's actually Effigy, right? And it's Dr. Scott, I think it's Secretary of State, but he's actually Effigy, who we know is a Skrull, who the first line don't know is Skrulls, right? But we have this story where Mr. Justice is going into Howland Kingdom, and he seemingly he was shot down, right? They think he's dead, but they have to go in to find out, right? So what's the name? Dr. Kamadi called. Oh, this is where Dr. Kamadi meets the first line, right? He said, we're the first line until Nixon messes with us. The Nixon, that we call him a crook. So it's like, this character is going to be one of the reformed heroes, reformed villains, like, say, Rogue or the characters of that type. And also Positron is also that too, right? So we get a full shot of the first line of this time, right? right? And the hints of them being, them breaking up because of Nixon. So this is where the story starts to get political, and Nixon starts to become involved, right? And then we have Mr. Justice. He is trying to get information out of him, but they can't. They don't want to continue torturing him because it dishonors that, to torture a brave man, this area of Holland, right? But she's not interested in that, right? So it's because the torturers can't take it anymore. They don't like to torture a brave person. They send them to the side, right? If it doesn't crack, you have to try something else, right? So they kind of figured out where he's at, right? Utilizing Dr. Kamadi's things. And here he point out that Mr. Justice is a legacy of the Yankee Clipper who they talk about all the time. But this time, Effigy is going with them, right? And then we get a hint to Reflex and what his powers are. Then you bump into him. It starts his powers. And then we hint that not only Effigy has mental things protecting him, so they can't figure out that he's a Skrull. So does Pixie, right? So once this got to this point that he wasn't going on this story with them, I was like, oh no, now we lose this. Am I going to stick with this book? Right? So we have a little interlude in this same area where Nick Fury's trying to go in. And Nick Fury goes into where they figured it out. And of course, everything explodes. All right? Nick Fury doesn't, ultimately in the future makes it out of this, but, right? So someone's kind of to tend to his wounds. Mr. Justice's actual plan will be revealed in a second. So he meets someone he can trust, which is named Khadijah. And we see Cassandra show up at the same time. And as she shows up, she sees the first line coming in. And she sees the heroes that were once bad guys that went good. Right? It said something goes horribly wrong, right? So as we go in here, they start making short work of the Black Fox gets in and whatnot. He's making short work of stuff. Nightingale and Cassandra have a talk. Then we see the heroes back in action. And then they get upset that a woman is being brought into battle. Black Chick joins in and he gets it. Positron. What? It seemingly Oxbow has captured the princess who was torturing Mr. Justice. They get out. They have what's the name? The kid, but actually they don't have it. They just wanted to get out with they don't have her. It was a ruse to get them out of there. And the Black Fox realized it was a diversion. That the plan was always to try to get someone to defect. And Mr. Justice handled business as any of the other heroes would. And the plan totally worked. He could have done it by himself. They just needed to get him out of there. But they didn't tell the Black Fox, and he decides he's too old for this. He's been around since the Clipper died. It really means the end of the first line. But it actually wasn't the end, right? But they're talking, the other point is like the Yankee Clipper is kind of looming over these characters, right? And I think we've seen him in the first ad possibly, but we're not seeing him yet, right? We haven't seen Mako in this series also, who was my other favorite. So it's like, she's only in here for a short while, right? Now, this one, I think as far as issues, no, this like, when you get through this book, it's very much every issue is your favorite issue because it gives you some more information about about these heroes, right? So we got the hint that Dr. Locke, that Cassandra, this is in the future, right? They don't know what she's doing. They know that she's traveling in time. They have a little bit of visual what she's doing. And the Skrulls are like, no, you got to stop this. She's not supposed to be traveling through time. But they're trying to track her. They can't stop her, but the Skrulls want them to react to it, right? So we go to there. We're introduced to two characters that we're going to find out more about later, right? And they get attacked. And we see the Black Fox come in and handle business, right? Now I could just tell you who these characters are, but I don't know. Let's just keep going, right? But this character is totally opposed to the Black Fox and totally against him. They get into an argument about Nixon, and he says he did, and he was going to spend time in purgatory for voting for Nixon, right? But their child is happy because she's the character we've seen be in awe of the Black Fox in the later, who becomes Gladfly, right? So she is the mutant and child of obviously two characters that might have some powers, right? So at the same time, you have the Black Fox go home, and she runs into Pixie, who I think, I said before, is Byrne's favorite character, right? And she's flirting with him. He's not in the mood with it. They talk about some stuff. And this is going to lead to a story with Diablo from the Fantastic Four, right? We see someone who's couldn't be captured on video. So that probably is Nocturne, but they say he's dead, but there's a chance he is. So this is going to get you some nice Dracula sort of locales, right? And the two of them on this separate mission going around. They see his MO, 5-hole wound of where they're taking the blood from him, right? And they get caught up by this from the home militia, but Doctor Strange is there, right? You can go in full Ditko, the old school Doctor Strange that looks pretty much Asian, right? And I jumped too far. All right, so they talk over things. They realize this character might be in Diablo's castle, right? They get there. This is where the Fantastic Four, I believe, went to in the third issue, around issue 30 or so. Right? They go to it. I love this page a lot, but I bought this page. I own this one right here, right? And I love this shot this reversing camera, going low angle, high angle, low angle. So it's got a cool camera pull out here. So you got low angle, then pull out to see the hand here, then reverse it all the way around, then reverse it back to see there's Diablo's probably in here, but Nocturne has more power over him, like with the power like of a vampire that can hypnotize people and all that stuff, right? So as he's climbing up here, he has a flashback to the past where we see a character here who's the Black Fox, but he looks a little more like Bucky or Robin. And we see Nocturne taking away the person he loved. But at the same time, infecting her with that means the Black Fox might have had to kill her. So there's so much of the story that hadn't shown up in here, right? So we see, all the stuff, and I think the vampire stuff is a shtick, But this is where they find out that Nocturne is actually a vampire, right? He said, that's why my power never worked on you, because you didn't have any living tissue, right? And he said he had the siphoning because he didn't want to, have any competition, right? So we have Black Fox come in, stabs him with a stake, like Buffy, slams him to the floor, right? So with a stake, you already knew? He said, I guessed as much. And then he said, the stake is only to hold me in the coffin. It doesn't stop me. But then next thing you know, they have another plan. Because Dr. Strange was involved. The sunlight opens it up, and it doesn't hurt him, right? And he's regained enough humanity to withstand the light of day. And that's when Pixie gets her opening. She should have tried anyway, right? And she makes his arm solid and able to stop him, but he's still able to use most of his vampire powers, right? They seal Diablo, so he'll be in there until a thing comes by, and then they have a piece of effigy, right? No, I said effigy. It's not effigy. It's Nocturne, right? So Nocturne is on the cover. We didn't know that was it. And this, they said, can the Black Fox prevail where he's failed before, meaning his wife, right? So here, if you had any lag in this series, we get Captain America, we get the Inhumans halfway through the series, right? So I said the Inhumans. Sorry, I keep having these things where I throw out other names. And I've noticed it when I play back these videos. So this is obviously the Invaders. We have Nocturne here, right? So Nocturne is full-on vampire. We got some characters that we never seen before. I call this one Knight. His name is Templar. I forget who she is. I don't know who this character is, but we know who the Invaders are, right? And this cover is inked by Byrne, using his pseudonym, and I think, what else? Anything else? I think that's the only inking he did of his own, right? Oh, this character is Vulcan, right? And she's no Katyusha. I don't know if she has a superhero name. And Reflex is back there, right? And Templar's running things. But at the same time, you have this nice, that's what Kirby called it, wide angle screen. But this other story is going on here. And Dr. Cassandra Locke, she was tossed, but she's not sure where she's at right now. It's a long way from civilization. Right, so the Skrulls commanding the Invaders up here. They've captured 2 of the heroes, and we have Nocturne there. You're wondering why the Invaders are reacting like this. And there's no hints. See the skull there. There, of course, the hatred of the Nazis. A good cause. But then we see the Human Torch here. Which one is it? Right? And Captain America shows us the shield, and then Templar sees that his blade was able to cut through the shield. What's name still stuck in the winter. And she realizes it's the Human Torch. So the Fantastic Four, right? So then we're actually able to see that they're the undead. So he tosses, and they start not holding back. We see the torch over here, and then we see Yeti, right? And this is where we reveal that they're not all mutants. Yeti is something else, and they met the Human Torch, while Templar, and this is where Templar got really cool, because obviously they played up him not wanting to kill anyone, kill the Skrulls, and here he doesn't hold back, right? And it's horrible, but they're undead, so he can do whatever he wants, right? And they were trying to find Nocturne, right? But we had the protests of Nixon. They complaining to Scott, who's here, of course. He's with everything. He's always around in these presidential things. And this is where they talk about the possibility of the first line being broken up. Here, where in the issue before that, we hearing him revoke their special privileges, and the Black Fox just shows up in the Oval Office, and they don't know how he got there, right? And then he starts telling Nixon how sick of him. Now I think Nixon, he showed up in a Star Trek comic by Byrne also, right? So Human Torch fights Yeti, and he goes and said, I got to tell the fellow Inhumans. So now we know this connects to an issue of the Fantastic Four, right? So now she knows that Yeti's an Inhuman, right? And here, the old executive office, he's doing everything he can to stop them from outlawing the first line, right? And then he tells him he has to do something or else he will, right? He said, you could take his place if need be. I will do no such thing. That would make me as guilty as he is. You're the only one of us on the inside, Scotty. There must be something you can do. Do something about it. You can do something about this, right? Because if you don't, I will, right? So this puts Effigy in a bind, right? So we go back to the future, and we see this alien who's like the Greys, the historical Greys. In the future, they're trying to figure out what's going on with Cassandra. This is Cassandra's boyfriend, but then they connect with Pixie, saying all this stuff is true, what she's looking for, right? Make sure the whole generation didn't die in vain, right? And that's why she went back as a historian. Here's the ad for the Ultimate stuff, right? And here's where we get a hint of Flatiron, and you see his son is not showing any respect for him. But at the same time, this is a late start for Flatiron. So this is 6 issues in. Is Flatiron the same character? Right? And this is where we hint. We have the Hidden Land. That's where she's at. But then she sees a flying saucer. So she decides she can do a Skrull saucer, which I think the Fantastic Four had. Right? And then as she's chasing Nocturne, we see these rats going the other way. But she doesn't understand this is what those guys that vampire is able to do. So she just thinks that he got away, right? And here again, another hint to what before, where she's going in further, and they say, you're not going in there. So I guess not. So the first line, and this is where they tell basically the Fantastic Four the whole story. Right? They're trying to do the history of the Skrulls, stuff that they never knew. And then Reed said there were hints of it before, right? So they talk to her. And here's where Templar's about to retire. So we've already seen the Black Fox retire, and he's totally against it. You can't get rid of which sword, which is possibly Excalibur, right? And he's going to get married by Bob Payne is against it, but he's going to be his best man, right? So Reed is going in there trying to help her out, and he resets it, and then she goes off. But then we see it has a forget function. So whoever she's around, they forget, and they're not keeping that in mind, so it wouldn't affect the future, right? So then we have Effigy by himself, right? And to know that this is what Skrulls look like, when he changes back, he has the full Skrull uniform on, right? So he's thinking about taking Nixon's place. I said no one would ever know that a Skrull occupied the Oval Office, not even Payne, right? But he's like, no, what am I thinking? Nixon has a family. I can never do that to them. What have I done? I sort of thought that I would be different, that I could make a difference. Instead, I become a part of an administration that rivals the Skrull Empire of paranoia and deceit. Fox was right. I must do something. So we get all the president's men, that he's Deep Throat, right? That the Skrull is Deep Throat. Now, this was put out before Deep Throat revealed himself. So at a point, this was open. But at the same time, this could be the real Deep Throat that actually led them to Deep Throat, right? So it could be a couple of things that keyed in these, the reporters, right? So then we had a hint, oh no, here's a Submariner who's had amnesia for so long, right? And so he can, using his real name to get around the name of the Yellow Claw, right? Because every time he put the Yellow Claw in there, they X'd it out. So Roger Stern used his real name, Xing Zhao, right? So I think I did it. Ooh, that's 30 minutes. Some good stuff coming next. All right. But this is more the political part. There's a little more in the next issue, I think, but less and a little more space travel. Something that you would get in the 60s, right? So there you go. You got the part 2. It's the 4 parts of the Lost Generation. And if I can find some time, I want to try to find the commission that Byrne did of the Lost Generation. It has a cool texture for a flat iron. But yeah, these were, I think, what was it, Roger Stern said, we gave Marvel a whole new toy line and that they could exploit, that they've kind of shelved afterwards. But, you know, it's one of those things that it was a part of the old regime, and Marvel's kind of put it to rest outside of, I think Wade supposedly used it in his History of Marvel thing, but who knows? But, you know, there's, as we've gone further back, Templar's gotten cool. Pixie's always fun. The Black Fox, I haven't fully gotten down it, but we lost a lot of cool characters as we've gone back. We lost Walkabout. We still haven't seen Mako. So I still like, obviously I like Nightingale. Yeah, this was this was one of my favorite issues, and it's 2 characters at this point I wasn't totally sold on. So, I mean, I'm gonna stick with it. So it was this one, when I met Templar here, I really started to like him. So I'm holding on. I'm sticking with it. It's just been a fun series, and we'll get to the next 3 issues soon. Spinner Rack out.